Hi, Z, whenever you're ready, my brother. Hey everybody, Peter Kafalis reporting from Floral Park here at a community event that was basically held to bring a few different neighborhoods together to make up this community against some zoning changes that Mayor Adams looks like he's trying to push through. Very concerned about a lack of infrastructure and environmental stuff that could potentially impact the area. And I brought Paul on. Paul, thank you for having us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Paul is basically the gentleman who was the main speaker here, who is, helping the community in their fight, in their potential fight. So, Paul, please tell us a little bit about what transpired today, what your concerns are, and what you're doing with the community.
Sure. So I'm an urban planner and a land use and zoning expert. I've been doing this for 25 years already as a professional, and I'm from here. I'm from Northeast Queens, not Belrose, but North Flushing near Whitestone. And we spent decades working to protect our communities, right? We spent a long time working with previous administrations to make sure that the zoning better reflected what was actually on the ground. And so particularly during the Bloomberg administration, we had over a decade where communities worked in collaboration with community boards, civic groups and community boards and their elected officials and the Department of City Planning and the mayor's office to work on where density should go. Okay, this area, we should have more housing. This area should remain the same. This area should be changed to better reflect what's there today. So it was really meant to fix the map, to make it district fixes is the best way to describe it, which of course the Adams administration has turned that term on its head. But essentially to contextualize the zoning so that it better matches today. Again, with plenty of room for growth. If you drive around this community, you see lots of construction fences up. There's lots of expansions of homes. There are areas where multifamily homes can be built, but it was done in a way that was very sensitive to the community with community buy-in. I think that's very, very important. You know, most places outside of New York City, you have planning boards, you have villages that have very specific rules about how they can do stuff. New York City is a much easier place to build, which has been part of the problem for a lot of our lower density communities where there's a certain expectation of development and quality of life. So what the mayor's plan is trying to do is to blow all of that up.
With no community input, no hearings?
Well, we are having the public hearings now, but the City Planning Commission and the mayor
looks like they're already setting
ignoring.
their way.
They're ignoring everything.
So similar to what we see with the shelters throughout Queens as well. Very little input, very little notice.
There's even less input in that sense because there's no public hearings with where shelters get placed or anything like that.
Not anymore.
No, there never was. Yeah. There never was. So again, for those watchers, we have a system in this city where the mayor controls every agency. Yes. He has complete control over agencies. And the council has limited powers, but one of the main powers they have is over land use. So the council has the ability to vote down the city of yes.
As a check and balance.
It is actually the legislature, right? The mayor comes in as the executive, makes a proposal. They have the ability to kill it, okay? During the economic piece, as I stated, which would bring a lot of commercial development into our low density residential communities, the council has not voted against it. They made some modifications. Sure. They went a quarter of the way where they needed to go. They need to go the other 75% where the communities, the residential communities, not just in Queens, but across the city, feel comfortable with the other changes that are going to allow more commercial development throughout the city. But right now, the council has not done their due diligence. And my comment today was, if they don't, they have an opportunity in the next week and a half to change their vote so that everything commercial is out of our residential communities. If they do that, people will accept that. Begrudgingly, they will accept it. If they don't do that, I think they're going to be in for a big surprise come next year. That's just the commercial piece.
And we heard that from the crowd. They were
definitely
very
heard
adamant.
Very
vote
adamant.
them out.
And by the way, this is my 94th presentation in the last 6 months throughout the city of New York, and I have another 20 of them till the end of June.
So this is a 5-borough-wide problem, not just Queens.
This is certainly, I focus more on the boroughs outside of Manhattan. It's certainly a problem in Manhattan.
Sure.
But Manhattan has a unique set of circumstances, I think, in some communities that are different from most of the rest of the city.
Agree.
And even some of the higher density parts of Queens have different issues than lower density parts of Queens or Brooklyn or Staten Island or the Bronx. But we have a very unified group of communities. We have over 200 organizations citywide working together now to try to stop this, because if this goes through, our communities will be dust. I can't put it any more simply than that. The housing portion of this plan is a nuclear bomb, and it's made up of different components, and each one of them, I said, do you want to die by fire, poison, knife, gunshot, you name it.
There's a couple options.
A couple of options, or have them all together and have a nuclear bomb. And that's essentially what this is. So we have made it very clear, and we had a big rally in front of City Hall about this yesterday. We had over 70 organizations. We had about 140 people.
Great.
We had a good amount of press. And we're not stopping. And we've said very clearly, you do this, we will know. We will know, and we will take action at that point.
Because those elected folks cannot hide which way they voted.
Correct.
So the community yourself, it's going to be public knowledge shortly after.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the council will vote on the housing piece of this. They're going to vote on the economic piece by June 10th, so
Wow.
within a week and a half.
Very close.
And the housing piece they're going to vote on in October. So the community boards are voting on it right now. With the economic piece, 2/3 of the boards voted against it. And the third that was left, half of them didn't have their conditions met. So really like 85% of the boards voted no at the end of the day. And the Department of City Planning and City Planning Commission completely ignored them.
So they steamrolled them.
They steamrolled them.
Wow.
Totally.
So the voice of these folks here and other areas is just
Everywhere.
not being heard.
It's not that they're not being heard. They're being ignored.
Disregarded.
The council made modifications, but again, it's like they negotiated with themselves. They didn't listen to their communities, because their communities are not satisfied with these negotiations. And for the housing, the communities have put a very red line and said, there is no negotiation. This needs to be removed. It needs to be ended, and this nonsense has to stop. Because how can you go forward and basically say your communities don't deserve to exist?
Well, your voice doesn't deserve to be heard.
And your voice certainly doesn't need to be heard.
Which doesn't sound very democratic.
It is certainly not the pinnacle of democracy. And
it's very unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate. So one of the things that I did mention is a bill that has been brought forward. It's called Assembly Bill 9417. The session ends next week, so it's not going to move forward this session, but it will be reintroduced next session. And that bill would allow any community across the state with 2,000 people or more to remove themselves from an existing town or city and create their own towns.
Kind of what Staten Island's been trying to break away from New York City? Or?
Okay, so that's a little different. That's where they wanted the entire county to become their own city. They could do that, but this is a little more local.
Towns and villages?
Yes, it's like creating the town of Belrose or the town of Floral Park, which of course there already is a village of Floral Park in Nassau, but the town of Whitestone, the town of St. Albans, the town of New Dorp, Staten Island, wherever you want to say, in all of our communities. But again, there are areas outside of the city that are having the same problems, in Yonkers, in parts of Westchester, upstate. So it's not just here, and therefore the bill is written. So in a nutshell, what it would allow is if you have 2,000 people or more, if 20% of the property owners sign a petition, a legal petition, they draw a map with boundaries, and they write a town charter, they can submit this to the local board of elections. And if everything is up to snuff, they must put it on the ballot for November.
For the citizens to vote.
For those people within the boundaries. And if they vote in favor, within 30 days, they have to have a special election for a new mayor and a new town council.
Wow.
And then 30 days after that, they cease to be part of the previous town or city.
So this would give folks who their voices aren't being heard a way
Total
to basically control their own future.
self-determination. Correct. Because we are 125 years into this experiment of the city of New York, and we are in big trouble. We are in big trouble. We have a city where power has always been centralized in Manhattan. Now it's gotten to a point where the decision makers have said, you're basically vacant farmland, and we want to develop you. You know, we had a guy named Donald Maness, the former borough president of Queens, who committed suicide when I was in high school in 1986 or 87, I believe. And he had a very famous quote. He said, all Queens has is land, and I'm going to develop every inch of it.
Wow.
And, you know, he killed himself because of over $170 million scandal of bribery and all kinds of other stuff having to do with approving developments and approving all kinds of sketchy business stuff.
And somebody's making big money on this at the community's expense.
This entire proposal was written by the Real Estate Board of New York.
Who has donated tremendous amount,
Tremendous
as the
amounts of
hotel
money.
industry has to Mayor Adams. So is
Even
there
more than the hotel industry, actually.
But
More.
is there a correlation, and stop me if I'm wrong, with the de Blasio, the previous administration, and some have said, and I don't know the exact dollars and cents, but some have said it's gotten even more lucrative with Mayor Adams receiving more money from those industries?
Absolutely. So yes, so for example, homeless services have ballooned into a $4 billion a year industry.
Taxpayer funded.
Taxpayer funded. Where 10 years ago it was about less than 400 million. So it's gone up
big difference. Huge.
1,000%.
Huge.
Yes, it's huge. Okay. So yes, but really the reason these laws are being written is there is a nationwide movement, and it's being funded by groups called Open New York and Transportation Alternatives and all of these groups that are developer-funded nonprofits who go and lobby for these kinds of changes.
So paid lobbyists, is that?
You'd think they would be paid lobbyists, but they call themselves nonprofits. So in many cases, they try to skirt around that. They are now taking over community boards. They just took over Community Board 5 in Manhattan, which is probably one of the most consequential boards. That's Times Square, Penn Station.
Internal coup, if you will.
Internal coup. And they are trying to get their members on boards all over the city.
And control
to
the
start
city.
controlling the discussion. Meanwhile,
Isn't that wicked?
we also have agency capture, where it's a similar situation, where we have a lot of folks who are in their 20s, who are not from the city. You know, they're recent graduates of college, and they've gotten a job because all the staffers retired during the pandemic, right? So you have all these young kids who don't know, they're not from here, they don't really know things about here, but they have a particular ideological bent. So they are the useful idiots, as I say. They're
Useful newcomers.
The useful newcomers who come in and do the work of the developers, who can then keep their hands clean because their own people are government workers.
So it's almost a proxy.
It is.
Okay.
It's scary stuff. And I've been doing this for 30 years. Even under de Blasio, this didn't happen. This is new.
So this is getting
very,
worse,
very
worse and
specific
worse under Mr.
to
Adams.
this particular administration, yeah.
And we heard the crowd here, who was a pretty nice-sized crowd, who came from
Over 200 people.
over 200 people. It was a nice-sized crowd. We took some pictures and video. And one thing we heard, a lot of jeers and boos for Mayor Adams, and we heard in general, see who supports us and who doesn't, and if they don't, we're going to vote them out. We heard that echoed countless times, and it seems that I would say also 99.9% of the people here were all together, minus one or two who had different
there were
ideas.
a couple of people who had
but I would say
different
you were
ideas.
almost 100% in solidarity
Yep.
with everything you're
That's
looking
been
to
the
do.
same situation at all of the previous 93 presentations I've done in the last 6 months.
Wow.
I have never seen a more unified. It's interesting. The mayor has unified our communities. He has tried to divide us, but he has actually unified us.
So it's backfired.
It's completely backfired. The mayor on Tuesday at a town hall meeting in Astoria said that our zoning is racist.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
It's terrible.
it's one of the craziest things I've ever heard. I've gone to Cambria Heights, Rosedale, Laurelton, St. Albans, which are, proud black,
Predominantly black areas.
80, 90% or more
Sure.
black communities that have had to work 5 times as hard to get their homes.
To reach the American dream.
To reach the American dream. And this mayor says that he's doing this for racial justice. He has stated this, the Department of City Planning has stated this, and these folks are just as enraged as everybody else are. So we are all united, and we had a huge press conference, as I said yesterday. It was from every community, of every ethnicity, as you can imagine.
Sure.
And what binds us together is that we all know that if this goes through, we're done. We're finished. And I've lived on the same block for 53 years.
Wow.
I bought the house next door to my parents. I'm a hometown kid. And a lot of people you see here, same thing. They've lived in these communities
Long-term residents.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years or more.
Sure.
There is always room for discussion. We are reasonable people. There is always room to say, maybe that block front there on Union Turnpike, instead of having that 1-story commercial, maybe it should be a 4-story building there. But that's where the communities need to sit down, have the process go the way that it goes today, the ULURP process, Uniform Land Use Review Procedure, which is our land use process in the city, and where we all sit down and say, okay, you know what, maybe 4 stories, maybe it should be just 3 stories, and you should have this amount of parking, blah, 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 blah. That's the process we have
So there is
today.
compromise available.
Always.
Okay, so they're not
This is not
hardcore
compromise. This is an imposition like the governor tried to do for the previous 2 years, like Corey Johnson tried to do the year before that.
Yes.
This is an imposition of turning our basic land use upside down to help one group of people, developers, who donated scads of money
Now the favor's coming back.
to this mayor and to the governor.
Oh yeah, both of them.
Scads, and to Corey Johnson, who was running for comptroller at that
So
time.
just so our viewers know, we're not just picking on Mayor Adams.
Oh, no.
It
No,
happened
no,
to
no.
the previous.
And there's other council
and there's
members
a lot of
also.
elected
there's a lot
officials,
of
the
elected
governor,
officials.
council, etc. So a
Absolutely.
lot of people are enriching themselves on potential misery of other communities.
Correct. And they're saying that they're doing it, we call it virtue signaling. We're saying, we're doing it for the people. My favorite line, and I don't know if this is going to get in your cut, but Governor Hochul, when she first came up with this housing stuff, she said, we want to create accessory dwelling units so that seniors can age in place and have a little income in their side, and firefighters with young families can afford to live there. And that was, so she kept saying one thing after another, and none of them stuck. Everybody said, this is just for people to make profit. This is for speculators to come in and do stuff. And then she said something very interesting, which I will never forget. She said, we need to get more people in the state of New York so we don't lose any more congressional seats. And I went, wow.
So
now you're talking about
sign,
political expediency here.
Pack the attendance record, so to speak. Huh?
Crazy. So that's what I'm saying. There's agendas here that
Aren't the people's agenda.
correct.
Yes.
We have a city that in 1960 had 8.1 million people. We now have a city that has 8.2 million people. We went down 1 million, we went up 1 million, we went up another 800,000, we're down 600,000.
And that depends if we're counting the illegals.
Well, I'm talking about permanent residents.
Okay.
Because let's be honest, the migrant situation, illegals, whatever it is, they are transient in nature to a large extent.
So
If
we could fluctuate.
It's fluctuating.
Okay.
If we've had 200,000 people come in the last 2 years, 140,000 of them are gone. So that's what I'm saying. So I don't want to talk about that stuff because it's more fluid. Let's talk about permanent residents.
Citizens.
Citizens and non-citizens who have green cards.
Okay, so
permanent residents. So as I said, we had 8.1 million in 1960. We had 2.9 million housing units in 1970 and 7.8 million people. Today, we have 8.2 million people and 3.6 million units. We have 750,000 more units and we have 400,000 more people. And we're in a housing crisis. We've been in a housing crisis since 1948.
We've been building forever.
76 years without a break, a housing crisis. We cannot build our way out of a housing crisis. We have a housing mismatch. We have people who can't afford rents.
Oh, yeah.
But everything they're going to do here is market rate rental housing replacing the American dream.
Let's make no bones about it. This is not discount housing.
No.
This is not.
This is $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month.
studio?
Well, let's say for a studio.
One bedroom?
Let's say one bedroom, $3,000 a month.
Which is a lot of money.
Which is a lot of
Especially
money.
in inflation right now. New York's expensive.
Correct. So
Everyone's struggling, most of us.
Yes, and again, people worked hard to buy their homes. And now you're going to say, oh, I'm going to let someone put 2 units in their backyard there. I'm going to let that corner house be a 5-story building with 20 units.
Correct.
And by the way, you're not getting any schools, any police, any
Sewer.
fire, sewer, water.
Parking, electric upgrades,
nothing.
Wi-Fi upgrades, nothing. So we're going to put all these extra people potentially with
In
the
the places
same
that have the
infrastructure
least stability
that's still
to
stressed
absorb
out,
it.
and then
Correct.
we're going to put more
Correct.
people to stress it
You
further.
got it. Yep.
So potential blackouts,
Everything.
sewer clogs,
Everything.
flooding. Okay.
Yeah. So
Makes
again,
sense.
so is the goal of the city of New York to drive out what's left of the middle class and make them all move out of state?
Some say it is.
Some say it is.
I'll
but
let our viewers
I'm
decide.
saying,
Some say
I'm,
it is.
I'm saying it, positing it as a rhetorical question.
Sure.
Is this the goal of the city of New York? Is it to free up our real estate so that people who are donors to the mayor, donors to other elected officials, can get their reward for giving money to
Well,
these
they're going to get their
elected
money
officials?
back and then some.
And then some.
And they're going to be
Correct.
very profitable.
Correct.
So Queen's Voice, you've heard it from Paul, who's a planner, obviously super knowledgeable. He's done 94 of these community events in the last 6 months. Paul, is there any website or any information you'd like to share where people throughout New York City can contact you or look up your studies, you had a lot of graphs and a lot of charts that was
I know.
very informative.
Yeah.
So is there anything you want to share with the viewers
Sure.
where they can find your information?
So you can find me at saveonefamilyny.org. Save the number 1 family, ny.org. That is our statewide nonprofit ad hoc committee that we created to fight the governor, and we're doing it now with the city of Yes, the same issue. And of course, we're not just about preserving single-family homes. We're talking about preserving two-family homes, lower density, even high-density communities that don't want the kinds of development that this city and this state are trying to impose on them. It's about self-determination and being reasonable. None of this is reasonable. All of this is being tried to be shoved down our throats.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like that. Queen's Voice, we want to thank Paul for stopping by. He gave a great presentation. He really did get...
and by the way, I believe the presentation will be online. They videoed the
Excellent.
whole thing.
So everything will be online. Please check it out if you want to see his full presentation. He had a lot of charts and graphs. And
you can also go to my YouTube page. I have other presentations
Tell the
already up.
viewers,
It's just Paul Graziano. If you look up Paul Graziano, City of Yes on Google, it'll take you right there. I did Cambria Heights is up there. Forest Hills is up there. We're putting up another one from Staten Island. We're putting up the press conference that happened yesterday. That should be up by Tuesday.
Okay.
And obviously the one that they filmed today will probably be connected and linked to that. So that would be another resource if people want to get in touch.
Paul, we hope to catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Queen's Voice, you heard it from Paul, a man who has a lot of knowledge on the situation and unfortunately is fighting on behalf of many communities throughout the city. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button if you like us. Please subscribe if you haven't. And we will see you with some new stories very soon. Thanks, Queen's Voice. Bye-bye.